Hi, this is Jonathan Lunger and from Hologram Chat, and my friend Joanie McMahon is here. She has a doctorate in psychology, and she's a master teacher of the law of attraction, internet marketer, and all-around great person. Today, Joanie's going to speak about anxiety and depression. Thank you so much, Joanie. Take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan. I am delighted to talk about depression and anxiety today. It's such a huge topic. So many people are affected by it. It's I don't think there's any other issue that has so much need to be understood and steps to help overcome it. There's so much depression on our planet that they're even finding antidepressant medication in our drinking water. Because whatever we don't use, when we take medication like this, it gets eliminated. And they've been finding it in our drinking water. So that tells us that there's an awful lot of people that suffer from both anxiety and depression. They tend to go hand in hand, that people will experience anxiety within their depression. That's mostly what I notice. So depression and anxiety, but particularly depression, it is the set of emotions that are attached to depression, like grief, sadness, despair, those kind of low feeling emotions. They're probably the lowest emotions that are on our planet, that we experience as humans. When someone is in deep grief or deep despair, you can go lower than that, but generally we just call it all depression. And there's different layers of depression, different levels. There's so much depression that the medical community has probably 10 labels for different kinds of depression. So so there's a lot of it, and it can go from mild depression to very severe depression. Suicidal depression would be probably one of the most severe. So when anybody is in a state of depression, they're in a very low feeling state. They are in a low energetic state. If you can just imagine for a moment somebody that that's been really depressed. Their energy is very low. They look listless. They're not thinking clearly. They don't know how to manage their thoughts. They are not feeling confident. They're the intelligent being that they are seems to be lost within them. And all of us have seen people like that. And you can just compare it to somebody who is happy and joyous, and they have a ton of energy. There's so much happening in their life. They feel good about who they are. They're confident, resilient, all of those things. So it's just the complete opposite. So what's important to know about depression is that there's many things, but I'll just talk about our emotional guidance system, this emotional scale, let's say, that we as humans have. So if we have depression here, say, or at the bottom, let's just say it's at the bottom, because it is, and we have joy and happiness way up here, the highest feeling that you could ever get to is way up here, okay? And everything in between are emotions as well, and every emotion in between has more energy, so to speak, than depression does. So for example, anger, it's a step above depression, and in my field we would call that's a huge vibrational leap, meaning there's much more energy in anger than there is in depression. So when you know someone who has been depressed and they move into anger, you want to celebrate that knowing that they have moved. Now, you don't want to stay in anger, and you don't want them to stay in anger, because that's no fun for them, and it's no fun for other people around them either. But at a very deep knowing, you want to know that they have improved their feeling level, their state of wellness. And then you can move into blame. That would be a higher than anger. And once you reach blame, you're really rolling up this scale, because there's a lot of energy in blame. In fact, a lot of cultures spend a lot of time in blame, the entire culture. The news, for example, is full of blame, blaming governments for doing terrible things, or certain people for doing terrible things, or certain companies, or there's a lot of blame happening all over the planet. Individuals blaming their parents, their children, their boss, anybody for how they're doing. Now, well, it's not accurate that there are others that are to blame for what's going on for us, but it's a much better feeling than depression, and much better than anger. So the process of moving out of depression is to slowly move up this emotional scale. After blame, there might be frustration, let's say disappointment. When you get to boredom, you're sort of in the middle between the negative emotions and the positive emotions. So once you get to boredom, you're really moving. And then you move into, happiness, excitement, enthusiasm, ecstasy, joy, and up like that. And with every step you go, it's called a leap in energy, a leap in vibration. It means you're getting weller and weller. Each step up that scale is a healthier step. And as people who are helping people with depression, or even if you're listening to this and you have depression, your work is to find things that make you feel better, or thoughts that make you feel better than the one you're having with depression. Now, I wish I could say that I have all of this understanding from a book and have never experienced depression, but what's true is that experience is really the best teacher. It's our biggest teacher. And I learned that for sure when I experienced a depression a few years ago, that I'm happy to say I'm fully out of. But when I experienced this depression, I had no idea that people felt this bad. I honestly had no idea. Before my depression, was a pretty happy person. I just had experienced a lot of joy. I had a wonderful mate, and my children were great, and lots of wonderful things in my life. And then my husband of many years passed away quite a few years ago now. And that catapulted me into this depression. And before the depression, I was a psychologist. I was counseling people who were depressed. And honestly, when I look back, I had no idea what I was talking about. I had no idea that people felt that bad. So when you are in depression, you do not even have access to a good feeling thought. I can remember feeling, being almost afraid of my own thoughts. At one point, I reached a place where I was contemplating suicide. And the reason for that is because I had been in this depression for 4 to 5 years after consulting with many professionals. I was in counseling for 4.5 years with a well-respected psychiatrist. I was on medication, both sleeping pills and antidepressants. And after almost 5 years, I still was not getting better. And I got to the point where I decided that I was either going to leave the planet or I had to get better. I was not prepared to hang around feeling this bad. And now I understand that it's our natural state of being to want to feel good. Feeling good is natural. That's who we really are. So I knew that I wasn't this depression. I knew that how I was feeling was not who I really was. But what I didn't know was how to help myself get better. And no one else knew either. And I was pretty well connected with many, many people in both the regular medical community and the alternative medical community. So I was not finding relief. So, but what I noticed is that my thoughts, I mentioned, terrified me. I didn't know that people thought such terrible thoughts. And I couldn't, when I would see somebody that was happy, I couldn't connect with them. I couldn't relate to it. I didn't feel that happiness that they felt, and I just felt disconnected from who I was and who, and from them. And I realized that that's true for depressed people. If you spend most of your time in depression, and many people do, you literally cannot relate to good feeling people. You you don't even have access to a good feeling thought most days. And because I knew that I wanted to feel good, some of the strategies that I used, a couple of strategies, and everybody has their own, was I would watch endless movies, good feeling movies. Like I would put on a movie that felt good, and when I was watching that movie, I was able to just focus on the story and truly enjoy it and just leave my own thoughts behind for that short time. And I would literally watch the same movie over and over again sometimes because I couldn't stand being in the presence of my own thoughts. The other strategy I used was I would sleep a lot. Many depressed people sleep a lot. Partly it's because you don't have energy, but partly, and a good part of it, is that when you're sleeping, you release thought. You feel better. And so for that short sleeping time, I would feel better. So those were two strategies I used, and I'm sure there were others, but those were two big ones that I used, and everybody that's depressed has their own strategies. So now I've mentioned the emotional guidance system, this scale from depression up to joy. And I just want to talk briefly about the law of attraction and how it's connected to this emotional guidance system now. So this is an attraction-based universe. Every single thing that comes to us we have attracted through our energy, through our vibration. And that's hard, that's difficult to get our head around, especially when we're having life experiences that are so awful, like a depression. And no one is ever attracting anything on purpose. It's not about blaming people for having something, an illness or a depression or anything. It's about knowing that whatever we are thinking and feeling is in the circumstances and events in our life are connected to it. So what I mean by that is when you're depressed, only other depressing things can come to you. You literally are creating a world of depression around you. And when you are joyful and happy and exuberant, you literally are attracting to you a world of joy and exuberance and happiness. And we have the power to do that. We have the power to create the life that we want. But most people don't realize that they do. Most people don't realize that they can be deliberate creators. Most people are thinking their thoughts and not realizing that they have any control over their thoughts. And honestly, when I was in depression, I didn't know how to control my thoughts. I didn't have the skills to do that. And I certainly didn't know about this emotional guidance system. And there was a lot of other things I didn't know that I now do know. So a person who is in depression will attract a very different life than a person who is in frustration. There's a huge difference between those two feelings. So if you spend most of your life in frustration, then you're going to have quite a different set of circumstances, people, events come into your life than if you are experiencing depression. A depressed person experiences the worst of everything, whatever that might be. Severe illnesses, could be bankruptcy, loss of relationships, etc. So all the worst possible things you can think of, comes from a state of despair, depression, grief. And you can see how, like with one person, they're attracting that. So if you have let's say a whole country of people that are feeling this depression, this despair, feeling like there's no hope, then you have like a whole pocket of people on the planet attracting terrible things to them. So both on an individual level and on a global level, it's very significant in this attraction-based universe. So the law of attraction states that which is likened unto itself is given. So meaning, if you're happy, happiness is given. If you're sad, sadness is given. And those are the kind of thoughts you have access to. And whatever you think and feel is always what will come into your life. So if you're thinking and feeling that life is great, great things are going to come forward. Now the great thing about this is that when something good happens to us, we can celebrate and say, I did that, I created that. And likewise, when something bad happens to us, we can also say, I did that, I created that as well. There is no injustice in this attraction-based universe. The universe isn't saying, well, you're a good person, so you're going to get this, and you're not a good person, and so you're not going to get this. The universe is just. Whatever we emit emotionally and through our thoughts, we receive. So it's so important to know both this emotional guidance system and about the law of attraction. So a person in depression wants to begin, first of all, to have the idea and the knowing that there's nothing more important than feeling good in any given moment or any given day. Nothing. Your job every single day is to get up and feel good. And so for a person who's depressed, it may take quite a while to move up this emotional scale. Moving from depression into blame may take quite a while, months, might take months. For some people it could be quick. But generally for most people, it takes a while to move up this emotional scale. I've been working with it now for quite a few years, and I feel honestly like I'm just getting a complete handle on it. It's because I was in such a low state that it took me a long time to really, first of all, even manage my thoughts, and then to understand the scale, and then to understand that no matter what, each day move yourself into a better feeling place. So when you understand that about depression, you can start to make sense of it. You can start to understand why these thoughts come and why these events are happening. Everything makes sense in your universe when you understand about this emotional guidance system and the law of attraction. Whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on grief and despair and sadness and how terrible things are, it gets bigger, literally gets bigger. And so we really want to get a handle on this so that we can create a happy life. I think you would agree that everybody, life is better when you're happy. You feel better, and your feelings are your guide. You want to be moving towards that which makes you feel good, feel better, always. So, I just want to go back to my own experience. The other thing that can happen, and it's very significant, is that when we have negative events happen to us, and we'll go to a childhood, and let's say there's a small child, say 7 years old, who's being bullied in a schoolyard. If that child doesn't have the resources, the skills, to process this experience in a healthy way, what happens is that negative event literally gets stored in the body. It's like the cell receptors close and the negative event gets stored, and it begins, and it stays in the body, and sometimes it's active and sometimes it's deactivated, it's not activated. So, and most people haven't been raised with the inner skills of how to let go of these negative events. Now, every cell in our body carries memory. If it's a positive memory, we don't have to worry, because that's who we really are. We are these loving, joyous beings. If it's a negative memory, that's when we want to know about it, because what happened for me is when my husband died, I catapulted into this depression. And what had happened is that the intensity of the situation of his death, of losing someone close to me, and feeling very vulnerable. When we're vulnerable, that's often when these old memories get activated. An old memory got activated, and it made the grief even more intense. So, and this memory, believe it or not, was a memory from in the womb. And if you can imagine, a memory from in the womb. So what happened was I got led to a book called The Journey by a woman named Brandon Bays, who has been my teacher for a while and is now a friend. And when I read that book after almost 5 years of depression, I immediately understood what had happened to me and why I couldn't find a way out of my depression. So Brandon's quick story, and it's a beautiful story, but just quickly in this video, she was diagnosed with a very large tumor, a football-sized tumor in her abdomen in her early 40s. And that, she was shocked when it happened. She had had a very healthy lifestyle in terms of exercise and food and meditation and all of that. And that tumor, she understood that, she believed that illness was about our inner world, about our thoughts and emotions, which is true. And she knew that if she just got the tumor taken out but didn't address what it was about, that it would just come back in a different form, another tumor or another illness of some sort. So she went into prayer, if you will, and got led to the work that she now teaches called Journey Work. And after I read her book, I knew that this is what had happened to me. And I immediately found someone in my town who knew this work, and I went to her. And after one session, the lid of my depression was taken off. I have never felt like that since. And 4 sessions later, I was able to let go of all my medication, my antidepressants, my sleeping medication. I literally woke up one morning after my 5th session of Journey Work, And I looked at my medication and I knew that I didn't need it anymore, and I just stopped taking it. Just like that. I've never taken it since. I've never needed it since. My depression lifted, and I actually moved quite quickly up this emotional scale. And whenever I would feel, and I became very determined to feel good. When you felt that bad, your desire is so great to feel better, to feel good, to feel happy, that I just became absolutely diligent about any time I felt that deep tension in my body, and I began to know my body when I could tell when an old cell memory was activated. And it just takes, an hour or less to clear out that cell memory, and then you feel better. So it's well worth learning about journey work. Absolutely well worth it. It's a set of life skills that helps you access an old memory and completely clear it from the body. So, the body then is replaced with a positive cell memory, and the body gets restored to wellness. So the journey work has been a huge piece of my healing process. Without journey work, I'm not sure, I'd still be around to do this teaching. But it's been the combination of journey work and the law of attraction teachings that have brought me to this state of knowing that I will never go back to that depressed state ever. I know that the life that I'm attracting now is joyous and happy, and I feel so positive about it, and I have the skills to keep myself focused on good feeling things. So that's the clue, that's the answer for people whenever they have depression. Antidepressant medication, the reason it's so prevalent, so many people are taking it, is that most doctors, I'd say the majority of doctors, still don't know that it's all about energy. It's all about this emotional guidance system, and it's all about this law of attraction and what we are attracting. And so when you don't know, it's easy to prescribe medication, because with antidepressant medication, what happens is that, yes, you do not feel as bad. You still feel bad, but not as bad, not to the limits that it can go. But you also can't feel really good either. It's like putting a straitjacket on your emotions, and it's like shutting down your emotional guidance system so that you don't have that guidance that you need to know how you're doing. So it literally feels like you're frozen in this straitjacket. And so while they may keep you from suicide or, being the worst that can happen, in the long term, they're never an answer. Some people have been on antidepressant medication for a decade or more, many. It's not uncommon for that to be. So literally you give up knowing about your guidance system. Your guidance system can't work properly because this medication affects it. So it still does work, but it's much more difficult. So anyway, I'm not against medication, but I am saying that it's a very short-term solution. That's what I think it ought to be if someone feels that this is something they want to go do. So get on with a situation that they're in. So some strategies with depression is to, one, really get a firm understanding of this emotional guidance system. Two, start to really understand law of attraction. Some of the best teachers, two of the best teachers about law of attraction are Jerry and Esther Hicks, and you can find them on the internet, abrahamhicks.com. And certainly learning more about journey work, a skill that can help release these old cell memories. And besides those, doing anything that can distract you from this bad feeling place. It might be going for a walk, petting your pet, watching good movies, resting, sleeping, going to the beach. Do anything you can. Be in nature. Do anything that makes you feel really good. And honestly, and please trust me on this, if you spend the majority of your time learning what makes yourself feel good and doing more of those things, it will lead you into a life that you didn't even think was possible. A life of joy and happiness. And depression will no longer be a part of any experience that you have. So I think that's all that I want to say about depression right now. My website is joaniemcmahon.com. You can always send me a message through social media, Facebook, Twitter, I'm on most social networking. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I wish you well in this journey from depression into happiness, and for everybody to really understand this. And when we know more about what's going on for the people in our lives, we're much more able to be the teachers that we want to be. When we have knowledge like this, we can teach from a better position. So thank you so much for listening. It's been just such a pleasure to be with you today. And I hope this has really been helpful to you. That's my goal, is that it's really increased your understanding of depression and actually all of our emotions. All right, take good care. Bye for now.